Ladies and gentlemen, my dear philosophers, my dear lovers of wisdoms are wise people. If you are wise, you are philosophers. If you love wisdom, you are philosophers. If you are critical thinkers, you are philosophers. If you have the habit to go into details, so you are philosophers. Those people who do not want to go into details and they just have an animal kind of life, so that cannot be called philosophers. If you are critical thinkers, if you are the lovers of wisdom, wisdom means knowledge plus experience. When you understand and you also practice it, so that is called wisdom. Knowledge plus practice or experience, that is called wisdom. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. If you love wisdom, if you are wise, if you are critical thinkers, if you want to go into details and you are not happy on the surface, it means that you are philosophers. It doesn't mean that you have a PhD in philosophy or you have some degree or you have some formal education in philosophy. But if you are a person who are analytical, want to understand the reality, the truth, want to understand why things happen and how things happen, and you have curiosity, you have creativity, you have skepticism, doubt, so you are philosophers. In my today's lecture, I will be discussing modernism, postmodernism, and postmodernism. So we will be discussing in detail three important eras of philosophy, literature, architecture, art, literature, poetry, all these dimensions that we have, which is other than what we eat or drink water or do sex. These are things which are beyond our physiological and our physiological needs. We go to artistic, we go to philosophical, we go to literary, we go to aesthetics. So that is something which is quite extraordinary. That is not something which is ordinary. So my such lectures are not for ordinary people. It is for extraordinary people who enjoy knowledge, who enjoy understanding, and they want to go into details that what, why, where, how. Then you will be enjoying such lectures. Now in my today's topic, we will be focusing on modernism, postmodernism, and postmodernism. Because we had modernism, then we had postmodernism, and nowadays we are also going through one of the era, and that is called postmodernism. That is very interesting, and that's why we have to understand what are the basic elements, what are the distinguishing features, and how can we go into details of all these concepts, all these moments. But before modernism, let us briefly understand that what is Renaissance and what is Enlightenment. Renaissance and Enlightenment continue in the forms of modernism, postmodernism, and postmodernism. Now, when we talk about Renaissance or Renaissance, that is from 14th century to 17th century. 14th century to 17th century. Please make your notes in the form of comments. Whatever terminology I'm using, so you should write it there in the comment so that you start practicing how to make notes. Later on, you can listen to this lecture again and you can make your final notes. So Renaissance started from 14th century to 17th century. Before Renaissance, we had Dark Ages because there was Christianity. And before Dark Ages, we had Greek time. Greek time. So we started from Greek 2500 years back. So we will cover 2500 years. History of human thought, human philosophy, literature, art, poetry, architecture, aesthetics, how in the last 2500s human beings they got their intellectual development. So first we had Greeks, though before Greeks we had Egyptians and Mesopotamians and Chinese and Indians. They also had some contribution to the human thought, but that was not that much philosophical or analytical or organized or systematic as Greeks did. They did their investigation, they went into details, they wrote their books, they did their dialogues, their debates, they were having academies, schools, universities of modern type. That's why usually we start the development of human thought from Greek era. 2500 years back, Greek era started. When Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, they were so dominant on human thought, all of a sudden Christianity came and Christianity engulfed human thought. People became religious. They were just going to churches. They were only listening to religious people. They were listening to priest and pope, and churches became so active. As today we see mosques are so active. 24 hours they remain open. People are conducting a lot of activities there. Hundreds and thousands of people they attend mosques, but very few people. We have discussion fora. We have very few think tanks. We do not have any kind of discussion, philosophical or psychological or sociological discussion forum in our society. But mosques, yes, in each and every village, town, city, there will be hundreds of mosques because people consider religion to be important. So at that time, Christianity was also important. When after Jesus Christ, till 14th century, we call it Dark Ages, Middle Ages, medieval era, where Christianity, Bible, church, they were the predominant dimensions and aspects of society. And only Aristotle was studied sometimes, sometime Plato was studied, but there was also a try to merge philosophy and science at that time. Philosophy and science, that was merged at that time. As today some people in our religious society, people also try to merge reason and intellect and critical thinking, philosophy with religion, but all such efforts were totally failed because religion and philosophy could not merge because both come from different sources. One claimed that I come from divine source. So how you can mix a divine source with humanism or humanities or human production, human productivity? That is not possible. So that happened with the Europeans. They forgot Greek philosophy, Greek critical thinking. They forgot Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They forgot skepticism, stoicism, Epicureanism, and other Greek philosophical movements. They just engulfed themselves in Christianity. Now, when Christianity was there were Dark Ages, and people, they were dependent, totally parasites on God, church, pope, and that was the predominant way to think. Later on, when a human being again started to think that I have my brain and I can do something with the brain also. I have a lot of mental capacity. I have a lot of my thinking process. I can do, I can observe, I can become rational, I can become empirical, I can use my eyes, I can use my brain, I can use my ears, I can use my sensory data. So why not I also do something? Why should I all be dependent on Pope, big people, important people, great people? They will be listening to those religious people, clergy, and they will be just having their head nods. Okay, it's all right. Whatever you are saying, it's okay. It is authentic. It is genuine. It is true. So then this thought realized that how we can use our own brain. From there, Renaissance started. And that was from 14th century to 17th century. Later on, Renaissance was converted into Enlightenment. the next stage, that was Enlightenment. Enlightenment was from 17th century to 18th century. So we are covering 2500 years, 500 years of Greek. Then we have Christianity, Dark Ages, no human activity, depending only on divine injunctions. And if there is any human activity, that was also a try to mix philosophy and religion. And we call it medieval and Middle Ages. Then we have Renaissance, 14th to 17th century. And now we have Enlightenment from 17th to 18th century. Enlightenment has two important connotations, two important meanings. One is that you are philosophically enlightened. You use your own brain and you get your knowledge. You use your own senses and you get your knowledge. So this is called enlightenment, because you do not depend on some divine, supernatural kind of knowledge or revelation or religion or that stuff. You enlighten yourself. You give light to your own self. This is the philosophical, literary understanding of the term enlightenment. There is another aspect of enlightenment, and that is spiritual enlightenment. And that enlightenment was done by people like Buddha. When Buddha was sitting under a tree or caves, or he was doing his introspection, his meditations, and he was thinking over human lifestyle, human creativity, human suffering, human issues. And then all of a sudden, he got the message, he got the current, he got the light. So that enlightenment is spiritual enlightenment. So here we are talking about the philosophical enlightenment, which is from 17th to 18th century. As I talk sometime about O-R-E, our Renaissance and Enlightenment. Our Renaissance and Enlightenment means that we are going through dark ages. We are going through medieval era. We have our own Middle Ages. Because in our society, the only important thing is religion. We do not give importance to philosophy and science. We do not use our own brain. We do not give opinion, theories. We do not give kind of scientific investigation. We have no role in scientific inventions. We have no role in discoveries. Totally, almost zero. That's why we are going through our own dark ages. That's why I use our, O-R-E, our Renaissance and Enlightenment. The same process Europe they went through, and today they are talking about modernism, postmodernism, and postmodernism. So whenever we talk about modernism, that is about art, that is about philosophy, that is about society, sociology. We have three dimensions of modernism, postmodernism. One that is art, artistic, literary, poetry. One is philosophical, and the other is social, societal dimensions. When we talk about modernism, then individual becomes important. Individual becomes important. No tribe, no society, no religion, no some bigger whole of society. That is why we have there was no Muslim civilization, because we did not give any original idea. We try to mix religion and philosophy. Some people, Al-Razi and Avicenna and Ibn Rushd, had some original contributions, but those were also totally discouraged. So we do not have any universal or international contribution as part of this part of the world. So this is break with the past and concurrent research for new forms of expression. Modernism means that we break from the past and then we go for the search for new forms of expression. And this started in late 19th century till mid 20th century. Till World War II, exactly till 1968, this period is called modernism. And it was, a period of progress, industrialization, urbanization, technology, science, and according to the poet Ezra Pound in 1934, make it new, make it new. Let us break with the past. Let us break with the traditions. Let us go and produce something which are new, modern. Why all the time we will be just in the shackles and in the chains of our past, that my forefathers and my grandfather and they were great people. What about you? What are you doing? Now the time is different. There must be some new contributions. Some modern developments must take place, and that is called modernism. Then abstract art was very important. Stream of consciousness was very important of modern times. Stream of consciousness. For example, my mind, my brain, it is not something which is stationary, which is stagnant. My brain is always moving. My brain is always functional. My brain performs a lot of activities. I can do a lot of things with my brain. So this constant, continuous, consistent movement of the brain signals, that is a distinguishing feature of modernism. That let your brain flow, let your mind be active, produce more and more ideas so that you can do, you can contribute, you can develop, you can have some growth, you can have some progress, you can have some social change so that we enjoy life in a better way. So this is called stream of consciousness. That we are not conscious just while eating. For example, when there is some delicious food, so we become conscious, oh, okay, there is a great food and I am going to eat it. Or you are taking shower with some cold water, or you are having, for example, some other kind of activities and you are doing some sex. So you are so happy and you are so conscious and you are so alert and you are so aware. Modernism tells us that your stream of consciousness must continue in all circumstances. Now somebody is giving you some money, for example, okay, come on, and I'll be giving you $10,000, and you become so happy, you become so alert, you become so aware. Oh, really? I'll be getting $10,000. That's a great accomplishment. That's a great achievement. And you become so active, and your brain becomes so active. Modernism is basically telling us that the stream of consciousness must continue so that there is more productivity, there is more production. Another important element of the modernism, that is cinema, movies, dramas, screen appeared. Before there was no screen, there was no drama, and there was no movie, there was no films, and there was no camera, and there was no cinema. So this was a new dimension to human experiences, that now things can be recorded, things can be telecasted, things can be broadcasted, and people can see things on screen. So cinema was another dimension. In the music, modernism said that music can be either atonal or there should be 12 tones so that we can have proper rhyme, rhythm, melody, symphony. And if the music is atonal without any tone, still it should have some symphony, some kind of melody, so that we enjoy music in the modern forms. Modernism was against realism. Modernism was against naturalism, that we should not depict reality as it is. For example, we have a flower, or we have a tree, or river is flowing, and I'm going to do the depiction of the river. So should I make another river in my painting, in my poem, or in my philosophical discussions, in my transcendentalism, or I should add something from my mind to the river? So if you reflect the river, the flower, moon, a mountain, a beautiful tree, and you reflect it exactly as the tree is, this is called realism or naturalism. Modernism said that now human mind must play some role as well. You can make that scenery, you can make that scenario more beautiful, more attractive. Why not to add something from your mind? Because modernism is working a lot on your mind so that your thoughts become modern. You are not just going to copy paste, you are not going to copy exactly the nature, but you can also provide some details from your own mind. This was another aspect. And there was also divisionism, that we can divide things, we can become analytical, and then we can understand it in a better way. There was no certainty of enlightenment, no certainty of religion. We should become self-conscious and we should go for experimentation. And this continued in the form of late modernism or high modernism in the 50s and 60s. It means that enlightenment, that was very certain, definite, democracy, and things were, quite interesting, concrete, exactly as it is. But modernism said that we should go for experimentation and we should go more for self-consciousness, our own involvement in any process. That is highly important. That's why it was then converted into late modernism. We also call it high modernism till 60s, 1960s. And later on, the same modernism was converted into post-modernism. For example, modernism is that why I should not have my t-shirt without sleeves or half sleeves. It is summer and I feel hot, and if the heat is there, why not I should have some light kind of clothes. Now, conventionalist, conservatist, those people who are traditionalist, they will say, no. Don't go for any modern dressing. Do not go for any modern ideas. Do not go for any modern system of thought. No modern fashion. Nothing like that. You should just establish your life patterns according to your traditions, which come to you from your past, from your forefathers. Do not break with the past. Modernism tells you, okay, have a modern look. You can have glasses, dark glasses, black glasses, your hair open, you are having jeans, you are having a modern style, fashion, not only in your dress, but also in your thoughts, also your ideas. You can embrace any kind of new ideas. So this was modernism. Now this thought was converted into post-modernism, especially after 1968. 1968, we got the new movement, and that is called post-modernism. This is departure from modernism. Departure from modernism. It started in mid to late 20th century, and it followed modernism. Post-modernism is not necessarily to be the opposite of modernism. It is not necessary to be the opposite of modernism. Postmodernism is the continuation of modernism in another form. Some people think that postmodernism is totally opposite of modernism. That is not the case. It is the continuation with new ideas, new style. It is modern modernism. Modernism has been made modern with new thoughts. So what are those new thoughts? Number one is that there should be skepticism. As modernism was a reaction to enlightenment, enlightenment was a reaction to Renaissance, Renaissance was a reaction to Christianity and Dark Ages, postmodernism is a reaction to modernism with skepticism. Skeptic means that you should be scientifically skeptic, not dogmatically. You should have doubt, but philosophical, scientific doubt for further investigation, for further understanding with your curiosity, so that you understand things by asking questions. You should not go for belief. If you believe in something, so your journey of research stops. You are not going to further investigate a matter in which you believe. Because belief, that is your decision, that is your conclusion, that is your final stop an intellectual journey. Postmodernism tells you don't stop with modernism. Go beyond modernism. Challenge some ideas of modernism as well with your skepticism. Skepticism means doubt. Doubt everything. And there should be irony. Ironical presentation of artistic, philosophical, and other dimensions of life. Irony. Irony means that you can become satirical. You can become, you can make fun of things. You can make a little mockery. You can have some jokes so that you present the reality in another form. Irony. Postmodernism is highly ironical. Ironical. They will be talking in an ironical language to philosophize or to present art or architecture or poetry or literature, but ironically. And they are totally against grand narratives. The mega narratives that we have established the truths that democracy is the truth, religion is the truth, and capitalism is the truth, industrialization is the truth, European dominance is the truth. No. All these mega narratives that we have, we can challenge, we can shatter, we can break all these narratives which have been told to us so far by modernism, Enlightenment, Renaissance, even Greeks, even Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. Religion is already out, but even we can challenge any philosophy, we can challenge any art movement, any art idea, or any art school, any architecture style, and we can have our own style. So that is postmodernism. Now to ideologies, because ideology is another established way of truth. This is ideology and this is true. So when somebody tells you that this is ideology, communism, Marxism, socialism, religion, all these ideologies are null and void. You have to understand things with your own brain, with more self-consciousness. As you see, it is advancement of modernism. Modernism was also focusing on self-consciousness, self-awareness, self-use of mind. But postmodernism is a better, more advanced or forceful or more vehemently or more forcefully telling you to use your own brain, no to ideologies. But at the same time, there is a role of ideology in human society. In human society, there is a role of ideology. Ideology is like marketing. How to control people, how to force people, how to bring people under your command. You have to give some ideology, you have to give some religion, you have to tell them some truth. Look, this is the truth. You follow this truth, you will be successful. So they recognize the role of ideologies, but they say that it should not be there. Now, the Enlightenment and the that was also a kind of meta narrative, and then there should be contingency. Another very important thing, that is contingency. Contingent means that urgency, emergency. Whenever there is any emergency, we forget about every truth, we forget about every established way of life, we just go and we attend our emergency. So human mind works according to the situation, situational reality. What are the demands of the situation? And according to that, we react. So this is called contingency. Now, there is nothing true and there is nothing false. It is only contingency which determines your reality. For example, one of my students, he was very obedient, very, thoughtful all the time, attending classes, and everything was all right. One day he said, my father is ill, my father is admitted in hospital. And the same consistent, obedient, intelligent student disappeared because of the father. Father is ill, So all realities are gone. Naeem Khan, you are my teacher, you are my life guru, you are my life coach, you are my mentor, I love you, this and that. A lot of claims, a lot of love stories. But when some other emergency comes, they forget about Naeem Khan, they forget about their commitments, because the other emergency, the other contingency is more important than those realities, those truth statements that those people established. So when you have a postmodernist mind, you appreciate this thing. That look, there are situational realities. Many lovers, husband and wife, they marry and they take oath that we will remain together and we love each other. And even they have children, and you will hear after a few years, they got divorced from each other. How it is possible? They were so close, they were in love, and it was such a romantic couple, and now they got separated. How it is possible? Because situation determines your reality, and this is called contingency. Now, social conditioning are very important. Why all the people in Pakistan, for example, they are religious? Because religion is the only dominant force in our society. In every town, in every city, in every village, religion is the most active, dynamic process in action. 5 times, Friday, this, that. So automatically, you got conditioned. This is called social conditioning. Now, if you go to Scandinavia, if you go to Norway, Finland, if you go to Canada, if you go to Japan, there are different social conditioning, and that social conditioning then makes your personality. So you can't say that all Pakistanis are wrong or all Japanese they are right, because this is the product of this social conditioning. If you want to bring some improvement, change the social conditioning. For example, here Naeem Khan is speaking on modernism and postmodernism. How many people are interested in this topic? If we announce in this group that tomorrow or today at 3 p.m. Tariq Jamil will come and he will deliver a lecture, can you imagine? Millions of people will be sitting here and will be shaking the head and will be giving the nods. Oh, great, this, that. Why? This is the social conditioning. You cannot sell mirrors in the city of blind, because the blinds, they do not have the value of mirror. Looking glass is for people who can see, not for blind people. If you just bring a mullah here in this group, hundreds and thousands of people will be listening. But on the topic of philosophy, literature, art, architecture, very few people are interested. So this fact is recognized by postmodernism, and that is called social conditioning. Similarly, there is no objective reality. We can't say that this is the reality and this is the truth. No objective reality. There is only subjective reality. And there is no objective morality, there is no objective truth. For example, we can't say categorically that this is the truth, this is the reality, and this is the best morality, or this is the best moral system, this is the best ethical system. No, this is not possible, because everything is relative. There is relativism, relativity. There is no absolute truth anywhere. So this is also recognized by postmodernism. Now, the next point is that there is no human nature. The same human can be a murderer, the same human can be an angel, the same human can be a nice person, the same human can be a bad person. So we can't say that human is the lord of creatures, human is the best creature, or human has got an excellent nature. No. Postmodernism does not believe in any human nature, any human reason, even science. Postmodernism also challenging science, Karl Popper, a very famous philosopher of science, he says that there is no reality in science, there is no truth in science. However, you should go for fallibilism, you should go for falsificationism. You should try to say that this thing is not false, but there is nothing which is true. Now, language is highly important. Social progress is important in postmodernism. Society must progress, must grow. They should not remain at the same time. Self-consciousness is highly important in postmodernism. And one of the distinguishing feature of postmodernism, that is self-referentiability. Self-referentiability. Self-reference. I can refer to myself. I can say Naeem Khan. Naeem Khan is proud of his accomplishment, and Naeem Khan has done this, and Naeem Khan, you are great. And you can refer to yourself. These are my achievements. These are my targets. I am doing these duties. You should be proud of yourself. Don't be humble and don't be that meek kind of person. I am nothing. I can do nothing. No. If you have done something, if you have something at your credit, then you should mention it. So this is called self-reference. There should be pluralism. There is no singularity. There is not one single race or ethnicity or language or religion which is the best. There should be pluralism. And one of the revolutionary thought of postmodernism is irreverence. Irreverence. No respect. No respect. Do not respect each other just for the sake of respect. This person has got 70 years of age. He is older, and this person is, my grandfather, so I must respect him. Why? Decide things on individual basis. Maybe an 18 years boy or girl is more intelligent than a person of 70 years. This person is from my family. This person is from my tribe. This person is from my language, from my religion, so I must respect. Why should I respect? No, this is a religious scholar, this is a mullah, this is a priest, this is a pandit, so we should respect him. No respect in postmodernism. And this is called irreverence. We should appreciate, we should critically examine, we should be logical, we should be analytical, we should see what this person is saying, what this person is doing, what are his accomplishments, what are the achievements, what are the ideas, what are the scientific discoveries. That's okay. But we should not respect a person just for the sake of respect. He is my teacher. So if your teacher is saying something false, or your teacher is misguiding you, or your teacher is telling you something which is unscientific, or something which is misleading, so why should you respect? Because he or she is your teacher. Just for the sake of teacher, you cannot respect any person. Just for the sake of father, grandfather, mother, friend, my family, my tribe, my religion, no. That is totally ununderstandable, that we respect people for the sake of respect. You can critically examine, you can challenge, you can criticize, you can do discussion with that person, and you should not come under pressure that that person is more in age or experience, or that person is your boss, or that person is superior to you. So no reverence, irreverence, no respect. And then we understand that postmodernism continued till 1995, and after that postmodernism started. But let me tell you also that postmodernism is related to deconstruction and post-structuralism. That we should destroy, deconstruct to construct again. For construction, we have to deconstruct. If you are going to construct something new, something grand, something great, so you must destroy, unlearn for learning new things. This is called deconstructionism or post-structuralism because we make some structures. This is my society, this is my family, this is my constitution, this is my culture, this is my country, and this is my business model. And all these things, these are called structures. And human works in structures. This is village, this is town, this is city. We make different structures. Postmodernism is against structures. It is very fluid, it is flowing, it is not stable. There should be no stability. And we should go for institutional critique. We can criticize institutions. For example, parliament, judiciary, army, or for example, this is a big institution, education department, this is very sacred, this is very holy, church, mosque, religions, all these are important structures of our society. We should not touch them. These are untouchable. These are beyond our criticism. Postmodernism, post-structuralism, deconstruction tells us no. Challenge every institution. Criticize every institution. So there is a institutional critique. There is irony. There is eclecticism, holism. Eclecticism means ECLECTICISM. Eclecticism means that we should select things from here, from there, and we can make a mixture of things. While modernism, that was just straight line. While postmodernism says that there can be eclecticism, there can be holism, HOLISM. We can collect different ingredients from different areas and then we can construct something new, and that is called eclecticism. There is binary opposition. No dark and bright, day and night, good and bad. This is called binary division. Binary. We divide things into two parts. It is good, it is bad. It is right, it is wrong. It is false, it is true. It is day, it is night. It is light, it is darkness. This approach is called binary. Postmodernism is against this binary division. For example, it is night. So at night, you can't see as a human being, but Kate can see. So for Kate, it is not night. And for you, it is night. It is darkness. So why we have divided things into two categories? In the deconstruction, also text and meaning. For example, I am speaking or I am writing. So there is a difference between the text and meaning. Different people, they take different meanings from the same text. So this is also an important theory in deconstruction, which is related to postmodernism. Postmodernism is also against Platonism. Platonism is Plato, philosopher. He gave us archetypes, forms, universal truths, that there are some ideal ways that we can represent reality by those forms, and this is against postmodernism. Postmodernism also tells us that essence in appearance. Essence in appearance. How do I appear? For example, you are going for an interview, for a viva, and you change yourself, your dress, and your face, and your hair, and you are just a gentleman, or you are a lady, and you are very sophisticated, you are, in a very scholarly, polite, decent, elegant way, you present yourself. Because this is your viva, or this is your interview, your job interview. So you are appearing to be a highly respectable person. But the same person when comes home and throw the dresses and just become like a common person. So where is the reality? What is your reality when you are sitting in an office before your boss and you say, yes sir, yes madam, and I'm doing everything what you are saying. But the same person comes out and then in his family with the weak people, he becomes a boss and then he becomes angry and then he is not so polite. So one of the important thought in postmodernism is that essence in appearance. How do you appear? I'm not interested that what is your reality. I am interested that how do you appear? How do you treat me? How is your attitude and behavior with me? That is your reality. Not that what you really are. I'm a very nice person. I'm a very kind person, and I am a great person. What should I do with your greatness? How you are dealing with me, that is important. So, essence in appearance. There is some criticism on postmodernism. For example, postmodernism spreads obscurantism. Obscurantism means obscure, darkness. That we are going back to the darkness time. We are against everything which is modern. We say that there is no reality, there is no truth. Every individual, every person can have his or her own reality. So there is no reality, there is no truth, there is nothing established. So again we are going back to darkness. This is called obscurantism. Then there is a meaningless world. In the world of modernism, there is a meaningless world. There is no meaning. Everybody is doing the way he or she wants. There is no structure. There is no bedrock. There is no any strong position. And postmodernism adds nothing to analytical or empirical knowledge. What is the contribution of postmodernism? Nothing addition, no new theory, no new invention or no new discovery. So no addition to analytical or empirical knowledge. There is no epistemic entity or certainty. No epistemic certainty. Epistemic means epistemology. Epistemology means knowledge, the study of knowledge. That what knowledge you are giving me? There is nothing solid. There is nothing concrete. Everything is flowing. So that's why there is no stability, no certainty, no epistemic certainty, no empirical knowledge, no analytical knowledge, no additions to human knowledge. There is only irony, and there are different perspectives. Postmodernism works on perspectives. That every person has got his or her own perspective, and we look at things from our angle. So this is reality, this is our experience, because everybody doesn't look at everything with the same lens. Now, what is the difference between modernism and postmodernism? Number one is that modernism is breaking from the traditional forms, whereas postmodernism is more towards self-consciousness. Then there is, in the modernism, there is the use of earlier styles and conventions, but we have to go for our own styles. Both started in 20th century. Both worked on way of thinking. But modernism, because way of thinking is very important. How do you think? This determines your personality. Modernism thinks that human intellect sought to improve. My intellect, my mind, my intelligence must improve. And we must improve according to improved environment. If I am sitting in a modern environment, modern hi-fi kind of environment, and modern technology, modern science, my home is properly air conditioned, and I have all the luxuries and facilities, my mind will work more because I have modern dressing. If I have huge dress on my body and I am suffering from summer, from heat, and in the winter again I have some my traditional ways, I cannot go outside because there is no central heating. So how my brain will work? So modernism tells us that work on your environment. If you improve your environment, your mind will also be improved. And modernism emphasizes too much on science, technology, philosophy, art, and cosmetic, laser. We have science and we have cosmetic laser. We can make our fashion, we can make our face beautiful, we can have some modern technologies to appear in a modern style, not in a traditional style. Postmodernism came after World War II, and it was disillusionment or disenchantment, disappointment of World War II. If life is so good, life is modern, everything is all right, then why there are so many wars? Why we are killing each other? That's why postmodernism told us that okay, modernism is all right. Modernism has got excellent ideas, but why people are killing each other? Because Hitler is not the same like any other philosopher. Hitler has his own ideas. In the postmodernism, there is no central hierarchy. There is only anarchy. Postmodernism goes for a complex world, and postmodernism is not clear. Postmodernism is diverse. Modernism exactly started in 1890 up to 1945 or 1968, and it was logical, it was determinate, while postmodernism started in 1968 and it is more irrational, it is anarchical, it goes and discuss belief system, it is non-totalitized, it is more subjective, it is more rhetorical, it is more literary, while modernism is more objective, more theoretical, analytical, it is dependent on search of truth, abstract truth. Life should be coherent. We should go for depth. We should go for the classic styles of music like Mozart music. We should have some style, some modern look, while postmodernism breaks everything. In the postmodernism, there is no universal truth. There is no high and low culture. There is no European domination. A person sitting in some remote African village may also have got a great theory. There may be a very wise person sitting in a poor country in Africa or Asia. It is not necessary that only Europeans they have got the real knowledge. This is postmodernism. And there is no reality in past texts. Whatever were said by Plato and Aristotle and Descartes and Hegel and all those great minds, it is not necessary that they have told us the truth. We should explore our own truth. Postmodernism is against depth. Don't go into details. Just remain on the surface. And one of the important terminology in postmodernism, that is hyper-reality. Hyper-reality. That reality is not Naeem Khan in the physical form. Naeem Khan appearing on this screen is also a reality. Picture is also a reality. Media is reality. YouTube is reality. Facebook is a reality. And internet has changed the concept of reality. People are doing their sexual gratification with pornography, with artificial things, artificial girls and boys on screen, and you enjoy. You enjoy drama, you enjoy movie, and you know that it is not reality. You know that it is just in 3 hours a child is born, and a child becomes a hero, and a child becomes the child becomes a man of 70 years, and then the man dies. Just in 3 hours of movie or 2 hours of movie, maybe 1 hour of movie, you see a reality of 70 years, and you think that it is reality. So this is called hyper reality. There are now music concerts. There is no need of those traditional classic music styles. Everybody can now become musician. Everybody is now artist. Everybody is now a writer on Facebook. Everybody now, we don't need those classic great people. There were some people who were very famous to be writers or philosophers. Now everybody is talking, everybody is speaking, everybody is intellectual. So we have to recognize this hyper reality. And the final point is that what is post. If you have some questions now, you can ask me, and let me finish this last point, which is the postmodernism. Postmodernism is that in 1995 started postmodernism. They do not have any other name, so still they give it postmodernism. Postmodernism goes again for faith, trust, dialogue, performance, sincerity. All these can work to transcend postmodern irony. Postmodernism is based on irony, ironical, satire, jokes. Do not take anything seriously. Take everything in joke lightly. Because no need of seriousness, analysis, and truth and reality and all these things. This is postmodernism. Postmodernism tells us that if we have faith, trust, faith doesn't mean religion, faith, trust, dialogue, performance, sincerity, and these can work beyond transcending postmodernist irony, because postmodernism is challenging everything. So if we become sincere, we do some dialogue, we give some excellent performance, we become sincere people, serious people, so we can challenge postmodernism. Now, nothing, for example, in the postmodernism they say anything goes. This is the formula of postmodernism. Anything goes. Anything can work. Everything is all right. There is no need of any girl or boy, or you just have a hole and just do it. And no need of reading some great, classic novels or philosophy books. You read just a Facebook post and it also works. Forget about these hi-fi kind of things. So postmodernism says that it is not like this, that anything goes. Anything goes. Now, they say postmodernism that we should go for Taoism style in architecture or philosophy. We should go for Gestalt psychology. Gestalt. Gestalt psychology. And we should go for Jung psychology. Jung. Jung gave a psychology based on archetypes. Gestalt psychology is based on form, patterns, and one of the famous saying of Gestalt psychology is that the whole is more than sum of the parts. Whole, W-H-O-L-E. Whole is bigger than sum of the parts. For example, you say 1, 2, 3 or 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So according to Gestalt psychology, 4 is bigger than 2 and 2 individually. When I do some work, you do some work, it is not just the summation of two works. The result will be bigger than my work and your work. This is called Gestalt psychology. Gestalt. Taoism, already you know, Taoism. Jung, Jung, a great psychologist who gave the idea of archetypes, and he was the student and friend of Sigmund Freud. So in the postmodernism, again forms and patterns and entirety and universal truths and whole and holistic approach, analysis, all these things are becoming important. Now I quickly answer to your questions. What is the difference between Westernism and modernism? Modernism took place in the West, to which we call the West. My personal idea is the world is like a globe, and world is like oval or round. So there is no West and there is no East. Whoever or whatever we read or listen, we should judge it, and if it is useful, if it is true, we should go for it. If it is true for you, then go for it. There is no West, there is no East. This is a reality that great people came in Greece, Germany, France, England, some people in Spain, Italy. Renaissance started in Italy, Machiavelli and such people. They are from the West. What we have in the East? We have Buddha, we have Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, and we have Confucius. Who else? Maybe some Mahavira and these people in India. But we don't have some great contributions to human thought in the East, in the so-called East. That's why modernism took place in the West. Postmodernism says that whatever West says may not be correct. We can have our own truth as well. When the second question is about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and Christianity, religion is the easiest way to have life. Easiest way to have life is religion. Do nothing, eat, drink, have sex, and God will do everything for you. This is the easiest way of life. So lazy people, those people who do not want to do anything, they do not want to contribute anything, so they go for religion. Now Socratic dialogue and debates and logic and analysis and Aristotle and Plato and ideas and philosophy, academies, lectures, discussions, critical thinking, analysis, description, who will do it? It's a very difficult thing. So when Christianity came and they gave an easy dose to them to have a happy life, so why should we go for philosophy and science and experiments and thoughts and discussions and questions and answers and using energy, and people will go against you and they will talk against you and this and that. So that's why people forgot Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. However, later on, when there was people were not satisfied with just religion, they wanted to use their brain as well. They had an experiment to revive Aristotle and Plato in Aristotelianism and New Platonism, to mix religion with philosophy, but that was also totally failed. As we see in the Renaissance period, like Spinoza and Descartes and other people, they are also talking about God and religion, because that was the stage that when they were mixing religion and philosophy. Later on, again both were separated, and Pope, who was controlling the whole world and Europe, became he was living in a very small village of small town of Vatican City. I have been there. I have met Pope many times. So that is the story. Ultimate truth, according to postmodernism, there is no universal truth. There is no ultimate truth. Every person has got his or her own truth. Now what? You can find your truth. You can find your ultimate truth if you use your brain, if you use your mind, if you use your body. You are happy, successful, you have accomplishments, you have achievements, you are discussing, you are writing, you are the author of books, you have a lot of money, you have perfect health, perfect body, perfect mind, perfect heart, perfect soul, you are energetic, dynamic. So that is your truth. What other truth you want to get? So all the best, guys. This was introduction to modernism, postmodernism, postmodernism, the differences between these three approaches, and also No, Muslims did nothing. This is just total spreading lies. When the best Muslims were there, the best Muslims, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, was there and his companions, we see no philosophy, we see no science. Because the best Muslims were those Muslims who were in the time period of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his close companions. The first 30 years, the first 50 years, the first 100 years, no science, no philosophy. There was no science, there was no philosophy. When they conquered Persia and they reached Spain and they got access to Greek books, they translated Greek books into Arabic, and then they got some ideas that Mutazilites, rationalists, came into being. So they did some translations. They tried to have some contribution, like Ibn Rushd and Al-Farabi and Abu Sina and all these people, but they were totally discouraged. Totally discouraged. And when Ghazali came, Ghazali put the final stamp on science and philosophy. Finish. Just Quran and Hadith. Just religion. No philosophy, no science, no experimentation, nothing. No rationality, no logic. Because these go against religion. According to Ghazali, these Greek philosophy and all these logic and rationality and critical thinking, these go against religion. So we will prefer religion and we will leave philosophy. That's why there is no original contribution of Arabs, Persians. There may be some theories, but today they are totally obsolete, totally outdated. Now no one is reading them as textbook. And that was also because of Greeks. If it was because of Islam or religion, then the first century, the first 30, 50 years, they should be the best. If we think that the Holy Quran and there is science and philosophy, so they should be the best philosophers. Today, Arab world, Arabic is their mother tongue, and the Holy Book is in their mother tongue. They should give us the best philosophers and the best scientists, but zero. So that is the reason that Ghazali totally discouraged Avicenna and Al-Farabi and such people. And then the last man who tried was Ibn Rushd. But Ibn Rushd was also totally discouraged. As people discourage me, why I talk about science, why I talk about philosophy, and why I'm talking about Renaissance and enlightenment. We have everything, we are proud of it. But I am not going to be discouraged, because I saw that when Ghazali discouraged these people, Muslim world went into darkness, total darkness. Until today, they are in darkness. Muslims had some golden period, but that golden period of around 100, 200 years, that was because of Greeks. We Muslims had no original contribution, except Avicenna, Abu Sina, who gave some logic, which was a little different. Ibn Rushd gave some ideas. Al-Farabi, against, he interpreted Aristotle. Razi was an atheist. He was against religion. He was against revelation. So Ar-Razi was also totally wiped out. And who else? In 1400 years, I don't remember 14 names. 100 years did not produce a single name. And today we have Iqbal, and who also died in 1938. Iqbal died in 1938. How many years passed? 70, 80, 90. More than 80 years passed, and there is no other name. Why? Stagnant. No Renaissance, no enlightenment. West and America and Europe and this and that. They have given you knowledge. Take the knowledge. Study them. Don't think that as it comes from Europe, so this will be something bad. why they are advanced, why they are developed. It is because of philosophy, it is because of science, it is because of their culture. If you are having such heavy dresses, how can you conduct experiments? How can you run with your big bellies and big dresses? Dress stops you. A woman becomes fat because she cannot go to any park. She cannot go to any mountain. She cannot swim. And half our population, that is women. Women have no freedom. They have no liberty to go to swimming pools, to go to mountains, to run in the parks. So they will grow. Their bodies will grow fats and fats. And when you have so many fats, then how can you study? How can you do analysis? How can you listen to lectures? How can you conduct experiments? So all these things are interrelated. When individualism came in Europe, humanism came in Europe, freedom came in Europe, people became free, their minds became free, they had no fears. If I say something, people will kill me, people will destroy me, and that's why they got development. Why our brain doesn't work? Because we are imprisoned. We have restrictions. So people, they have claims that there was canals and food and milk for the children. But all these things happened in the Greek times. All these things happened in the Greek times. That is the reality. Greeks, we copied from them, and if someone made a canal or gave milk to children or established some good traditions, so nothing bad in it. But you cannot claim what you did not start. Originality is important. If you have started something and you are the founder, you are the inventor, you are the one who will get the patent, the intellectual property rights, then yes, we are proud of you. All the best. Take care.